Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Hi, my name is Amy L. Bernstein, and I'm reading from The Nighthawkers. There are two characters in this scene, the main characters, Pauline, also known as Pan or Penny, and Gray. And here we go. The night was overcast and cool, a perfect night to dig. Pauline directed Gray to a field where they parked behind a stand of trees, not fully hidden, but the best they could do given the terrain. A row of construction backhoes stood like hulking shadows a few dozen yards from them. "You're right again, Pen. Looks like they're getting ready to turn this place inside out." "Crime. Plowing up all this virgin ground for what? Ticky-tacky houses and cul-de-sacs and ugly plastic swimming pools?" "Yeah, that's the real crime," Gray said as they shouldered their packs. "Yet somehow we're the ones breaking the law. When actually, our true mission is salvation." "Nighthawkers to the rescue," Gray laughed softly. "Now where to, genius?" Pointing to another stand of trees about an eighth of a mile from where they stood, Pauline pulled out a laminated map for his sake, Archaeology Theater. She showed him the lay of the land. "It's not an elevated site," she explained, "but the historical record is pretty clear that this is where the settlements were the most dense and active, and the penetrating ground radar images I examined back home confirm the basic coordinates." At the tree line, she indicated the spot to begin digging, counting on her lover's single-minded pursuit of ancient treasure to prevent him from asking pointed questions. He'd reassured her he wouldn't, but he also wouldn't brook mistakes, especially not by her, not now. They strapped on headlamps, the focused beams enabling them to work hands-free without lighting up the surrounding area, then started in on separate trenches. She positioned him directly above the sword, which stood hilt-side up in its soil coffin. She pictured it with perfect clarity, every facet as well as its precise position. Then, without warning, she left Gray behind. She hovered just above a small brick factory outside Strasbourg, France, where weapons of war were hammered, smelted, and assembled for export to the American colonies battling to free themselves from Great Britain. A French worker in soiled breeches whistled a folk tune as he loaded horsemen's sabers into a wooden crate packed with excelsior for the journey across the Atlantic. Now someone called her name. The Frenchman? No, surely not. "Penny! Penny, hey!" Gray hissed loudly. "I hit something. Could be a rock." She wrenched herself back to the present. "That was fast." "As planned." "I figure 18th century, maybe." He tapped the back of his shovel against the hard object just beneath the surface dirt. "We wouldn't find indigenous artifacts this far up." "No, probably not." "Maybe I should keep digging? See what else is down there? I hate to leave treasure behind." "Gray, let's do one thing at a time, okay? Let's do this right. We should press our luck out here in the open." She scanned the horizon. Gray sighed, then switched from shovel to trowel and got on his knees to poke at the object. A small knob-like shape the size of a grape protruded from the soil as he excavated its circumference. Over the next several minutes, while Pauline aimed her headlamp toward his trench to provide maximum illumination, he revealed more and more of the sword's hilt, which was gently curved with a decorative knob, the grape, at the tip. She handed him a putty knife so he could begin to loosen the soil vertically beneath the hilt. They worked in silence, but Gray's rapid breathing gave away his mounting excitement. She continued scanning the horizon for what? Police? Competing nighthawkers? Or something else entirely? He cleared the hilt, revealing the top end of the worn blade. At that moment, a gentle, unmistakable whooshing filled Pauline's ears, and she shivered. Looking up sharply, she threw off her headlamp and stepped away from Gray. "Hey, I need that light. What are you doing?" "Thought I heard something." I'm not stopping unless I absolutely have to. Check it out and let me know. She began walking across the field under a starless, overcast sky, ready to confront whatever was heading her way, and dreading it too. The whooshing grew louder, as if the moths of the pulse beat inside her eardrums. Her heart hammered faster and faster, its insistent rhythm competing with the roaring in her ears. Not the pulse, surely not. The thrum of a harmonic chord ringing her body like an instrument, the same chord she'd heard twice before. He was there, striding across the darkened field, a hulking shadow casting a faint silhouette against the night sky. Running away was pointless. She stood her ground, the hum growing denser, settling in her bones. What do you want from me?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. Glad to have you guys all back for another amazing author. And today, I have the pleasure of having the fabulous Miss Amy. Hi, Madame. How are you?
Hi, DC. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
It is such a pleasure to have you. And I have so many questions, as I'm sure our listeners do as well. Let's just jump in and not hold anything back. I want to know about this book. What is this book about? What did you just read us? Where did it come from? Fill us in.
Right. So it's called The Nighthawkers, and it is a contemporary paranormal romance, I would say with some, I hope, fresh twists. A Nighthawker is someone who searches illegally at night for antiquities, often to be found under the soil, often using a magnetic device to try and sort of ping metal that's buried. And it's a terribly illegal thing to do. People do this and try and hunt for buried treasure. And I love the phrase nighthawking. And I used some of this in another book and I wasn't done with it. I said, oh, no, I've got to write more about this. So that's what I'm doing here. Pauline and Gray are, in fact, nighthawkers. They are being very, very naughty. But Pauline has much bigger problems than that.
Paranormal romance. Where is this twist in this story? Where are you taking us from here? Because I want to know, like, do
Right,
we have vampires? What do we got
right.
going on?
No. On one level, this story is about an archaeologist who must choose between her handsome first lover and the irresistible stranger who helps her discover a powerful destiny. But really, it's a story about feeling lost and like you don't belong, and learning that you can't find the right partner for you until you know yourself. So, without giving everything away, Pauline comes from a pretty lonely background, a lot of confusing, unexplained things in her upbringing, certain sort of feelings and spells that overcome her, and she doesn't know why. And she's going to find out that she's really not like the rest of us.
That's very fun and gives you a whole bunch of things to look for. I like the idea and message about knowing yourself. That
Mm.
is very, very powerful. Sometimes I see a lot of books where your characters are running from one love interest to another, and there's never any development on their own. So, is that something you truly thought about and said, I want you to figure out who you are before jumping into another relationship?
Absolutely. And what a great way to think about it, because a lot of what's going on in the book, beside the sort of the otherworldly stuff and the spooky stuff and the latent powers, and beside all that stuff happening, is really this notion that true love, I think, if you want to call it sort of finding a real soulmate, you have to understand yourself first. And I really wanted Pauline to take that journey, have to perhaps find a Mr. Wrong before she found a Mr. Right. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to learn some things, some truths about yourself along the way. And it can be hard to accept. And she struggles with that a bit, but she really gets there in the end.
That's really fun. And it's also very exciting to see that growth in your characters and be able to people to follow that adventure along. For people who fall in love with these characters, is this a standalone or are we looking at a series? What were you intending for this book?
It is a standalone. I thought to myself, where would I go with this? Where could I go? I will admit, I've teased myself with a couple of ideas, but I'm calling it a standalone because I certainly haven't outlined a sequel and I certainly haven't promised myself that there is one. It does have a happily ever after ending. And so I'm hoping that readers will be satisfied with the story as it is.
Who was your target audience in this book?
This really is for all the romance readers out there who love the paranormal genre, but might be looking for something that's not just vampires or fairies or other creatures. I was trying to sort of give everyone that great sort of paranormal shiver and a little bit of mystery. But by grounding it in archaeology, there's a bunch of time travel and it's sort of a little bit mystical. So I was trying to give that lover of the paranormal romance just a bit of maybe a diversion from some of the other great, fantastic books that are out there in the genre. So hopefully paranormal romance lovers will want to take a chance on this one.
You have a cross mashup of genres because you do have the whole time traveling piece, which is always very exciting and it has such a huge mass market for it. But you're also dealing with the whole concept of almost magical realism, if anything. So you're touching a little bit of that and giving people who are not into the full paranormal experience, they're not interested in the shifters and they don't care about the vampires. They can get into this world of the magical realism, not so much the paranormal, and still get an exciting adventure out of that. So I love that combination. You mentioned your other books. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I will. And DC, you're so right. This one really is magical realism. We've got a solid foot in the real world, the world we all know, but then we've got another foot in this totally other place. And I love straddling that. And it so happens that in early July, another book is going to be released called Dreams of Songtimes, which also deals in magical realism. And it has some romance in it, but it is not a romance. It's a dark exploration of a human mermaid hybrid who's very much living in the real world and feeling very much like she's sort of othered and it's kind of assimilating is difficult. I tend to like to explore pretty real social issues in fiction. And I think that when you're dealing with things like magical realism and fantasy, it's an extraordinarily fruitful way to deal with some pretty serious, heavy stuff with having to make it just serious and heavy. Because the minute you put somebody who's part mermaid in a book, I mean, there's going to be certain things, right? I'd like to go against some of the tropes. So done that. So that's going to come out in July, Dreams of Songtimes, and that will be pretty much everywhere that you can get books, especially digital. And it's a really wild ride because that book, I do write cross genre. It's got some magical realism. It's got some LGBTQ romance. It's got some violence. It's got some death. It's got like some political and sort of social justice stuff. It's like almost a mashup. But I like that because I hope it keeps you turning the page and trying to figure out where it's going.
You are crossing in all different levels, which is really exciting, but you're also providing a journey of very much what is happening current days. I don't think we can say you're not writing in a vacuum. Let's be honest. The moment you bring some of these topics to the table and feeling alienated and still trying to assimilate, it's something anybody can relate. And it doesn't matter the race or the gender. At some point in our lives, we have moved to a different place, we've done something different, that those feelings are very core to who we are as our transition. So it's something very universal. And yet you have put it in a world that people can be like, not really about me, but I can relate. So it doesn't feel so heavy if I don't want it to be heavy.
Exactly. And speaking of the real world, because then in August, the Potrero Complex comes out in early August, is a post-pandemic mystery thriller. So that's also taking place in what I think of as the very near future, which could be a real future, but it's a bit dystopian and is kind of what happens to a society after a pandemic, even worse than the one that we've been through. And it's a little bit about how social norms might be redefining themselves or falling apart, but it's also very much a mystery about missing teenagers and what has happened to them. So it's sort of a little bit of cross genre again, but that's why I call it a post-pandemic mystery thriller, because you're going to get all of that rolled into one.
You are one busy writer, madam. I am so impressed. You are definitely switching back and forth from a more of a business side of the house. How do you get to market all these different genres? Because normally, if you are doing paranormal, if you're doing fantasy and you stick to that, it's a little easier to promote one after the other. When you're doing these massive cross genres with such a huge themes, how do you target your audience?
That is such a good question. I wish you would give me the answer. I do think it's a challenge. I do think that what's happened in fiction a lot In fact, I've written an essay about it that's going to be coming out soon about the genreification of so much fiction, this notion that so many books are put into buckets now because it's just more convenient. It's convenient for Amazon. It's convenient for bookstores. I understand that because, I mean, we all want to support our local bookstores and so forth. And it's convenient for readers who are wading through hundreds and hundreds of titles and deciding what to read. And if they know that they like a particular genre, they're going to feel comfortable staying in it. When you start genre hopping somewhat, as I'm doing, because I'm going to write what I really want to write, and I'm going to tell the stories that I want to tell, it's really challenging to market that. And frankly, the hope is that talking with amazing authors and podcasters like you is just a way to get these books on the radar and people want to sample some new stuff. But no, there's no one easy way to do it. It's not easy.
You are tackling a huge challenge that a lot of authors had because usually you have two ways to market. You're either going to market to genre or you're going to market to brand. In your case, it's all about a brand and building that tribe and building that community of people that love your writing, not so much a genre, just because you write in such a diverse fields. So to our listeners, you have an opportunity to experience all different things within the same author, which is really exciting, but it is very, very hard. So my heart goes out to you because I'm in the same category as you. I was like, give a secret formula that I don't know about because it is
Right.
hard. You mentioned this story was based on you investing in something in a previous book. Tell me a little bit about that.
That, in fact, is the book I just mentioned most recently, the one that's called The Potrero Complex, the post-pandemic mystery thriller. I threw in, I guess this is going to sound like I'm just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, but I promise you, the books have clear beginnings, middles, and ends, and everything does hang together. But I threw in a little bit of a subplot about a character who begins to tread on indigenous land where he does not belong and to dig up artifacts that do not belong to him. And he does it because for him, it's an escape from a really crazy world. And he finds connection and sort of peace and solace with connecting with the deep past. But he's doing something that's sort of immoral and illegal. And I actually did interview an archaeologist about this challenge of trespassing on, because a lot of what's done with preserved indigenous sites that now might be overgrown and looks like nothing but the woods to you, there's actually artifacts on that land from civilizations of this, it could be even as much as like 10,000 years ago when indigenous villages were thriving. The archaeologists will not disclose the location of those places for all the reasons that I'm mentioning. They will not tell you where they are. They know where they are. So when I went down the rabbit hole for the Potrero complex, and this became a subplot, I have a master's in cultural anthropology, and I've always been fascinated by these things, anthropology and antiquities and archaeology. I realized when I finished that book, it's like, I'm not done with that subject. But then I brought it forward into this romance environment in a completely different, non-realistic way. But I had a lot of fun doing it. Gave me an excuse to read Antiquities Journal, things that I enjoyed. So
How much research do you do for your books?
I do quite a bit. I was a journalist for a number of years. So I really love that process of learning and discovering and then finding ways to take facts and embed them in fiction in a way where you're still honoring the fact, but you're doing something else with it by telling a story. I think there are ways of doing this responsibly, and I try to do that. I do quite a bit of research because I feel really grounded, and then I feel I can build this fictional world with a foot in the real world. And I guess that's just the way I see things.
It's an exciting way to create a universe because you're literally pulling from all these things that is currently there. To some extent, you're even writing a lot of urban fantasy, but it's that current setting that you're creating and building upon, which is really, really fun. Tell me, Madame, for a brand new author who's thinking about this career, what advice would you give them?
A couple of things. The first is, first and foremost, you must believe in yourself and in your work because you will encounter a lot of people who may not. And so, number one is believe in yourself, believe in your ability to tell the stories that matter to you. It's so important. Number two, which is related to that, which is you have to face down rejection. It's part of being a writer. And you cannot let it stop you in your tracks. If this is what you want to do, if this is what you must do, if you have to write, you just have to blow past all the no's. I mean, I have had hundreds and hundreds of rejections from journals and contests and agents and publishers. And I just made a decision that I wouldn't let it stop me. I think that's really important.
That is such a powerful advice to any author and to anybody in general who's trying to follow their dreams is to actually have that self perseverance, is that self belief that this is something that means huge to me that I should pursue it. And I love it. Thank you, Madame. So tell us, because I can chit chat with you forever. Where can our listeners find you? Where can they find the books?
The easiest way to find about all the books is just to go to my website. And it's amywrites.live. It's just AMY and then the words rights, as in WRITES, amywrites.live. You can sign up for my email list if you wish when you're there. And I've got information a little bit about all these books and where to pre-order or order. And you can also figure out how to send me email there. I love getting emails from people with questions.
Awesome. That's a really fun website. Before you leave us, we know you got many, many things to do. Are you ready for a lightning round?
Oh, I'm going to put my thinking cap on. Let's try it.
Easy peasy. Don't think too much about this. Let's see. Android or Apple?
Android.
Awesome. Hot chocolate or latte?
Latte.
Nice. A candlelight dinner or breakfast in bed?
Candlelight dinner.
Fall or winter?
Fall.
My kind of lady. This is a little different. Let's see how you do. If you were stuck in a deserted island and could only have three things with you, what would you have?
Oh, wow. I would have to have an unlimited amount of music, specifically classical and jazz music, and maybe some Broadway. I'm just putting it out there. You can hate me for it, but there it is. That's one. Oh, how many things do I have to have? Do I get to have?
Three.
Sushi. I gotta have sushi. So maybe I'm having to have to catch those fish myself, but gotta have that. And oh gosh, number 3. I guess I'm supposed to say books, and maybe I should, because it was a toss-up between books and wine. But
I don't know. I would take the wine. That's a tough one. I would take the wine.
So here's the author on the deserted island with nothing to read. Okay.
But there's wine. Maybe rum. I'm Dominican. I was like, I would go with rum. Yes. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
I would just say that, as you put it, as an author who's sort of trying to basically build a brand and just persuade readers who have so many choices about what to read to take a chance on an author that they don't know, it means so much to every author to begin to find those readers. And I'm really thrilled for anyone who's willing to engage with my books. And I really love to know what people think about them. I'm just lucky that I get to do this. I hope that people find my books and read them. And DC, I'm incredibly grateful to you. This has been really, really fun. You made it really fun and easy.
Thank you so much, Madame. And congratulations. I can't wait for all of your fun projects to come out to our listeners. Come on, go ahead. You know you want to follow Miss Amy everywhere. Pick up this fun books that is going to challenge you, just keep you turning some pages. Make sure to give us a like, join our community, follow us everywhere, invite others to join us. You know, we're always better when we're growing together. Remember, next week we will have another amazing author, so you don't want to miss it. A huge shout out to our Patreon community. Thank you so much for making this podcast possible. If you would like to join us, the link is in the comments. And like usual, thank you, everyone. See you next week. Bye.